They say when luck comes knocking, there's no stopping it. At a salvage yard, a young guy stumbled upon a rare 7th generation Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. This car, produced in 2001, had a lot of body damage, and many parts from the interior were missing. The only seat left was the driver's. He popped the hood, and luckily, the legendary 4G63 red-top turbocharged engine was still there. It didn't seem to be missing any major components. From the engine bay, you could tell the car was originally white, but had since been repainted in a dark purple color. There was no time for a closer look. The rain had started pouring down. He quickly got a tow truck to load up this former track warrior and began the journey home. Back at his workshop, he could see the front and rear bumpers were missing, and the body had numerous scratches and a small amount of rust. He didn't even take a break, diving straight into the teardown. First to go was the massive rear wing, followed by all the doors. He also removed the lone driver's seat. Before buying it, he had already tested the engine and confirmed it ran, which he was very happy about. Now he was removing the spark plugs to check the compression in each cylinder. The results were excellent. It seems the 4G63's reputation is well deserved. With the wheels already off, he went underneath the car to remove the exhaust pipe. You could still clearly see the Apexi exhaust logo. The rear of the car had some minor deformation, which he easily hammered out. Next, he removed the taillights, trunk lid, and hood. He also cleaned up the engine bay and removed the air filter. Then he gave the entire engine bay a deep clean with a pressure washer. The next task was to deal with the rust spots on the car. In a stroke of genius, he modified an air compressor nozzle by drilling a hole in it, then drilled 2 corresponding holes in a plastic bottle cap. He inserted the nozzle, filled the bottle with sand, and just like that, he had a homemade sandblaster. And you know what? It actually worked surprisingly well. He used it to blast all the rusted areas, then sprayed on a coat of rust-proof primer. After years of exposure to the elements, some of the car's weather stripping had become brittle and cracked. These would also have to be removed and replaced. Next, he began sanding the entire body car. Since the car was originally white, he planned to restore it to its factory color. This meant he had to sand off all the old paint and polish the bare metal to prep for the new paint job. It took him 2.5 days to completely strip the paint from the body, not missing a single nook and cranny. The doors and other parts he had removed earlier were already primered. He then masked off the rest of the car, covering the engine bay and other areas, and began to spray the body. After the paint had completely dried, he went back to repair any imperfections, scratches, and dents. Once that was done, he gave the whole car another deep clean, sealed it again, and began applying the white base coat, followed by a final clear coat. He did all of this work by himself, and the entire process took him about 10 days. With the bodywork finished, he moved to the engine bay. He started by removing the valve cover. The plastic sheathing on some of the hoses had cracked due to age. These couldn't be repaired, so he had to remove them all and replace them with new ones. The metal pipes, however, were still usable. He polished them to remove any oxidation, restoring their original shine, and then assembled them with the new hoses. Because the car was missing its bumpers, the front-mounted radiator was covered in a thick layer of dust. He had to remove it, clean the brackets, and repaint them. He also fully restored the radiator and its connected metal pipes until they looked brand new.
The red paint on the valve cover was partially flaking off. He decided to sand it all off and repaint it in the same vibrant red. He had also sourced used replacements for the missing door handles and had already painted them. He just needed to install them on the doors. He even repainted some of the usable weather stripping before putting it back on the car. The inside of the engine looked very clean, so he could reinstall the freshly dried valve cover. Next up were the brakes. He carefully cleaned them, then removed the calipers. The rotors were rusted and had to be replaced. Some of the bolts were so worn they were unusable, so he had to retap the threads to fit new bolts. He also repainted the brake calipers. The side skirts and other parts that were painted separately could now be installed. He also bought a carbon fiber spoiler, which he mounted on the top of the rear window. Any plastic parts that were still usable were also refurbished and restored. The headlights were just dirty and oxidized. Instead of wasting money on new ones, he simply polished them until they looked as good as new. He's got some serious skills. As for the missing front grille and bumper, he later asked the seller about them, and they managed to find them for him in a corner of the yard. This saved him another significant expense. Now he just needed to sand and repaint them before installation. He also repainted the faded mesh grille. He said the most important part of restoration is repairing, not just replacing parts. That's why he tried to save and refurbish as many of the original components as possible. For example, the two main headlights were yellowed and oxidized, but after a thorough polishing, they were crystal clear again. They were perfectly fine to continue using. He painted the Mitsubishi level on the grille a striking red to make it pop. The exterior restoration was now nearing completion. He just had to install the windows, door cards, and the flooring he had sourced. As for the seats, it took him a long time, but he finally found a complete set of original Evo seats. They were used but in excellent condition, and he was very happy with them. He also found an Evo 8 rear wing online. He preferred the look of the 8th gen wing over the 7th gens. As soon as it arrived, he and his son installed it to see how it looked. Next was restoring some of the dashboard and interior trim pieces. Once that was done, he could install the seats. The final steps were to mount a new set of tires and the restored exhaust pipe. And with that, the restoration of this classic 7th generation Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution was complete. He immediately fired it up and took it for a proper drive on the nearby roads. And that brings us to the end of the video. So for all the brothers watching, which generation of the Evo is the GOAT in your eyes?